Hello, wonderful students of YouTube. Today we're going to be looking at how to answer matching information questions for the reading section of your exam. I know a lot of students find this really tricky, and one of my students came up to me the other day and was asking me how to go about these questions. So in this video, I'm going to show you a 4-step technique, which is really simple, really clear, and it's going to show you exactly how to address this type of question. We're going to go through it step by step. The key reading skill that you really need for this type of question is being able to scan for information. In your own language, you can scan. Imagine if you go to an airport and you're looking for your flight on the big board. You have a big board in front of you with lots of different flights, and you're looking for specific information. You're looking for the information of your flight. You don't read everything on that board. You're only looking for the name of where you're going to and the number of your flight, and probably the time. We're going to use exactly that same reading skill to address this type of question. My name is Phil. I'm the head trainer at One-to-One IELTS. I've been teaching IELTS for over 10 years. I've been an examiner. I've worked for the British Council teaching IELTS, and today I'm going to help you improve your reading. Okay, so step one, as always, is read the instructions carefully. Here we have got 7 questions, and it says reading passage 3 has 8 sections, A to H. Which section contains the following information? It doesn't tell us if there is only one answer per section, so we have to assume that it is possible for each section to contain more than one answer. What we know for sure is that there are 8 sections, only 7 questions. This means that not all sections will contain an answer. Next, we underline keywords and make some notes from the options. If we look at number 14, the first word I see, which is really important, is examples. So we know we've got more than one example. It's talking about examples of advantages about the environment. So these advantages have got to be related to the environment. And these are the advantages of oil palm tree cultivation. So we're looking for multiple environmental advantages of oil palm tree cultivation. You'll notice this is very specific. So when we're scanning for information, if we don't see anything about the environment, if we only see one example, we know that our answer is not going to be in that bit of a passage. Looking at 15, I see it says description of an organization. Now, organization is a very important word here because it's very likely we're going to be looking for a name of an organization. So it's going to be a proper noun. We're going to see capital letters. This organization controls, is in charge of environmental impact of palm oil production. So again, it's going to be something to do with the environment, the effects, the impact, and we want an organization that controls these effects. Moving to 16, you'll notice again it says examples, so we're looking for multiple examples. Global usage, so worldwide use of palm oil. So we're going to be looking for more than one example of the uses of palm oil. When we look at number 17, first words that come up here are reference to a particular species. The article here is really, really important because the article shows us that we're only looking for one particular species. If we're looking at species, so it's basically we're looking either at animals or plants. And again, we're probably going to be looking for a name of something. This species is going to benefit the ecosystem or the environment, or it's going to be beneficial, and it's going to be beneficial to palm oil plantations. In 18, we've got a very, very important word here that says figures. That means we're looking for statistics, and again, we're looking for more than one statistic. These statistics are going to be about rapid expansion, so like very fast growth. Moving on to 19. we're looking for an economic justification. So a justification would be like a reason. So something to do with money and a reason, and for not opposing the palm oil industry. So this is maybe like not boycotting, for not having a problem with the palm oil industry. 20, again, it's talking about examples. So we know it's going to be multiple examples. We see that S, which is really important. It talks about creatures. So we're looking at animals, maybe birds, which are negatively affected by oil palm plantations. Now, this is how I would write notes for these options. So you notice I'm really emphasizing that we've got multiple examples of potential environmental advantages. And this looks like it's basically saying something is positive. So I'm looking for a paragraph that is going to be very positive about oil palm plantations. 15 is asking for a name of an organization which controls the environmental of palm oil. We don't really know if this is positive or negative, so I haven't really added that information. The next one, we're looking at examples of global use. Again, we don't really know if it's positive or negative. We definitely know we need to be looking for more than one example. 17 is looking for only one species, so probably an animal or a plant, the name of one of those, which is good for the ecosystem. Again, it's probably going to be quite a positive paragraph talking about how something is good. 18, we're looking for multiple figures, so multiple numbers about the growth or the expansion of the industry. We don't know if this is positive or negative, so again, I've left that information out. 19, we want one financial reason, one reason that is related to money, does not oppose the industry. Again, this is probably going to be quite positive about the oil palm industry. And for 20, again, we're looking for these multiple examples. We're looking for names of animals, maybe birds, which are badly affected. So this is probably going to be quite a negative paragraph about palm oil. These are the notes I'm going to be using going forward to scan for the information that we need. Step 3, and this is where all the magic happens. We are going to scan the text for the keywords and just note down any possible answers. Make sure you read all the text as quickly as possible. So we're not skimming, we're not reading the first sentence, the last sentence. We're wanting to read everything. However, if you come across any words you don't understand, and it doesn't matter how many of them there are, you are just going to keep reading. We're going to be reading as quickly as possible. That's really important here. You just want a general idea of what the paragraph is talking about. Therefore, you don't need to understand everything. As I said, we are going to be reading all of the different paragraphs. To give you an idea of about how much time it should take you to do that, you should be looking about 20 to 30 seconds per section. So here we have section A, and I have got a list of my notes underneath the text. To give you an idea of how quickly you should be reading, I'm going to tell you when I start reading and stop reading. If you are taking longer than this to read the text, you are spending too much time looking at specific words. You wouldn't then be reading to just get a general idea of what's going on. So let's start our reading now. And stop reading now. That should be sufficient. So if you're trying to read in exam conditions, that should be the speed that you're going at. Now, the general idea that I got from reading during that time was we've got some examples of the uses of palm oil. But what I wanted to do, although I can actually remember that one of the questions was referring to that, I want to use a process of elimination to get rid of the options that it's definitely not. So if we look at number 14, it's asking for multiple examples of environmental advantages. There is no mention of environmental advantages in this passage. So we know we can just cross this out, and this is not a possible answer. If we look at 15, it talks about an organization's name. There is no mention of an organization here. So we know for sure that this text does not contain the answer to number 15. 16 talks about examples of global use. So we mentioned that there do seem to be examples, and there do seem to be examples of the uses of palm oil. So for me, this is looking very likely. I still want to look at the others just to make sure. So in 17, it talks about one species, which is good for the ecosystem. There's no mention of species of any type here. So we know for sure 17 is not the answer. 18 is talking about numbers. And we can see there are no numbers in this passage. So again, 18 is definitely not possible. 19 talks about a financial reason not to oppose the industry. There's no mention about reasons not to oppose the industry. Again, we know that 19 is not possible. And 20 is talking about examples of creatures. There are no names of creatures in here. So we know that 20 is also not possible. So the only possible answer here is going to be 16. And that also works with what we thought the passage was about, which is examples of usages. So for me, I'm pretty sure that 16 is in passage A. You'll notice what we're not doing is reading 14 and looking for the information, reading 15 and looking for the information. We're starting with passage A, and we're going to find the numbers which correspond to that in that text. This is going to be a lot easier than just trying to look at the number of a question and then scan the whole text for where you might find that information. Now we're going to repeat this process with passage B. But the good thing this time is that we know we don't have to scan for 16 because 16 is in passage A. So we have less things to look for. Now, once again, you want to give yourself about 20 to 30 seconds to read this text, no more. At the moment, you can just pause this video. I don't want the video to be too long. To give you an idea of how to do that, just have a look at a stopwatch and check that when you're reading, it takes you about 20 to 30 seconds. Now, we're going to go through the same process as before and look at question 14. And it says it's looking for examples of potential environmental advantages. When scanning through this, we will notice there is no mention of potential environmental advantages anywhere in this passage. So we can cross out 14. There is also no name of an organization. So we know the answer is definitely not 15. 16, we've already found, so we're not going to look for 16. 17 is looking for one species. There's no mention of one species. So once again, we can cross this off. 18 is looking for numbers. Well, I can definitely see numbers in this text. So I want to quickly check that these numbers are referring to the expansion of the industry. So it mentions that the global land area devoted to growing oil palm trees grew, so it's expanding from 6 to 17 million hectares. That's definitely talking about what we're after. It also mentions that from a mere 2 million tons of palm oil being produced annually globally 50 years ago, there are now around 60 million tons produced. Once again, this is showing a growth in the industry. So we can be very sure that 18 here is going to be found in section B. We still want to check 19 and 20 to make sure that no other text is found in section B. So 19 says one financial reason for not opposing the industry. There's no mention of financial reasons, so we know that 19 is not in here. And examples of creatures, there are no names of creatures here, so we know that 20 is not possible. So we can be very sure that the answer to 18 is going to be B. And this is another question that we're not going to have to search for in future sections of the text. 2 of our answers have been crossed off already. So now we're going to start the process again. Let's have a look at 14. We're looking for multiple examples of potential environmental advantages. There is no mention in this text about potential environmental advantages. We know that 14 cannot be the answer. There is also no mention of a name in this text, so we know that 15 cannot be the answer. There are some names of animals. So we see there are endangered species, most famously the Sumatran orangutan. Also, rhinos, elephants, tigers, and numerous other fauna have suffered from the unstoppable spread of oil palm plantations. But this is not a positive paragraph. This looks like it's negative. This is trying to say bad things about oil palm plantations. It's also not just giving one species, it's giving multiple species. So we actually know that 17 is not possible here. There is no mention about money or financial reasons, so we know 19 is not possible. But we know 20 is definitely possible because there are definitely multiple names of animals and they have been badly affected because the text says these animals have suffered. So we know that the answer to 20 is going to be C. We move on to the text of D. Now this time we have 3 answers already crossed out, so we're only looking for a possible 4 answers here. Pause the video, read the text quickly. Once you're ready, let's go through the process again. Are there any examples of potential environmental advantages? The simple answer is no. Are there any organizational names, like names of organizations? And I can definitely see some capital letters. We've mentioned the University of West England, the London School of Oriental and African Studies. So there's a couple of organizations that are mentioned. I don't really see anything about them talking about that they're controlling the environmental impact, but I do have a name here. So what I'm going to say is I'm going to leave this as a possibility for 15 because there is an organizational name. So it doesn't matter if we're sure or not. We're going to repeat this process and you're going to see at the end how we can decide if 15 is the correct answer or not. We'll have a look at the other possibilities. So 17, does it mention a species? No. And does it mention any financial reasons or anything? No. So there is a possibility that's 15. I would recommend for this, just writing 15 with a question mark. I'm thinking, okay, it might be, but I'm not really sure. Now we go on to E. Can we find any examples of potential environmental advantages? I don't see anything about environmental advantages here. So again, we're going to cross this off. There's definitely no name in here, so it can't be 15. Does it mention an animal or a species? Nope. And does it mention any financial reasons? Well, it does actually say here that one response to the boycott movement has been the argument for the vital role palm oil plays in lifting millions of people in the developing world out of poverty, making poor people a little bit richer. That would be a financial reason. Now we've got to check, is it a reason for not opposing the industry? So it says here, one response to the boycott movement. Well, if you boycott something, you oppose it. So we've actually found here a financial reason for not opposing the industry. It doesn't mention any other reasons, so we've only got one reason. So that looks like E is fairly certainly going to be 19. So we only have 3 possibilities left, moving into text F. Pause the video again and read the text. Give yourself about 30 seconds for this part of the text because it's quite long. And let's get started again. So, are there examples of potential environmental advantages? Well, this looks like it is a possibility. We see that it says that the immensely high yield, which is predominantly what makes it so profitable, is potentially also an ecological benefit. Well, an ecological benefit is the same as saying an environmental advantage. So we've got one advantage, but we want to see if we can find multiple advantages. If we move on, we'll actually notice it starts talking about carbon emissions. And you'll notice at the end of the paragraph, they say that oil palm plantations might actually use up more carbon than other types of crops. So we've definitely got a second advantage there. So we've got examples of multiple potential environmental advantages. F looks like it's 14. Let's have a look at the other options. Are there any mentions of an organization's name? Nope, so we know it can't be 15. And does it mention one species that is good for the ecosystem? No. So we know it can't be 17. So for me, F and 14 go together. We only have 2 paragraphs left, and we also have 2 options left. 15 might already have been taken, but let's read on to make sure. Pause the video, give yourself about 20 seconds for this piece of text, and then we'll check together. Okay, so for this, can we find an organization's name? I see capital letters, which makes me think that there is an organization, or there's certainly a name or something here. We've got the industry is now regulated by a group called the Round Table on Sustainable Palm Oil. So a group, and it's got the name. The industry is regulated, so it is controlled. So it actually looks like we have the name of an organization that does control the industry. Can we check that it's talking about it controls the industry on an environmental level? It mentions that the RSPO, which is the name of the group, insists upon no virgin forest clearing, transparency and regular assessment of carbon stocks, and other criteria. Well, all of those things are related to the environment. Although before we thought that 15 might have been in one of the other paragraphs, we can see here that this is much more likely the answer for 15. We can quickly check 17, and we will see that there's no name of a species here. So the only possibility with this paragraph is 15. And for me, I'm much more confident that this is the correct answer for 15, because not only have I found the name of an organization, this time the organization looks like it controls the environmental impact of the industry. Okay, so we move to our final paragraph. We only actually have one answer left, so I'm 99% sure that we're going to find 17 in paragraph H. So we're looking for the name of a species, maybe an animal or a plant, that is good for the ecosystem. Now I can see some capital letters which say Asplenum nidus, and that seems to be a Latin name for the bird's nest fern, which looks like a plant that grows on trees. Later on in the passage, it says that this species performs a vital ecological role, so a very important role to the environment or the ecosystem. It also mentions that if we introduce this plant into areas with oil palm plantations, it will allow these areas to recover their biodiversity. So that's definitely an advantage. It's a good thing for the ecosystem. And we've got the name of one species. So we will notice that we have actually found our answer, and our answer is 17. So now we've gone through all of the various texts. We're going to organize our answers and guess about any questions that we're not sure about. So we said A was pretty definitely 16, B was pretty definitely 18, C 20, D we weren't sure about, it could possibly have been 15, but then in passage G, we were really sure about the answer being 15, so we can cross out D. E was 19, F 14, G 15, and H 17. And that means our final answers for this reading question are as follows. If we weren't sure, especially say with the questions like maybe D and G, we've seen the name of this organization, but we just couldn't decide which one was correct. At least now we only have 2 numbers to choose from, so you would just guess D or G. And that is how you go about answering the matching information questions in your reading exam. If you found this useful, please don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel. If you're looking for more help with your studies, I provide one-to-one lessons, group lessons, essay corrections, and mock speaking tests. You can contact me by emailing me at 121ielts@gmail.com, or you can come join my Facebook study group. It's completely free at facebook.com/groups/121ielts. You'll also find a link to this group and the email address in the information of this video. Good luck to you all in your studies. Hope you're all having a great week, and I'll see you in the next lesson.